Hello, friends. Did you know that nearly 80% of those who watch my videos aren't subscribed? If you enjoy the content, I'd truly appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button. It helps a lot. Also, don't forget to leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments. Your interaction not only supports the channel's growth, but also helps these stories reach more people. Thank you all for being here. By the way, where are you watching from? Let me know in the comments. For 12 years, I have been organizing wilderness tours in the Appalachian Mountains. I started this job at 23, fresh out of college, with an unused forestry degree and a girlfriend who told me I needed some time. The mountains seemed like the right place to figure everything out. Turns out I was good at this. I was good at reading the weather, calming tired or scared people, and knowing which trails to avoid during certain seasons. But there are things you learn out here that don't come from training manuals or ranger certifications. Things that make you understand why the old-timers who've lived in these hollows their whole lives talk the way they do. Slow, careful, like they're always listening for something behind their words. This event took place 4 years ago, towards the end of September. I was guiding a group of 6 people on a 5-day loop trail that started near Cades Cove and extended northward through the less traveled sections of the Smokies. It wasn't a challenging route, mostly moderate climbs with a few steep sections, but it was far enough off the beaten path that we wouldn't see other hikers. That was the whole point. These people had paid good money for solitude, and they were going to get it. The group was a complex one. There was a couple named Brad and Jennifer, in their 40s, from Ohio, wearing matching polar jackets and taking photos at every scenic spot. There was a young man named Corey, mostly keeping to himself, wearing headphones constantly despite there being no signal here. There were 2 women in their 30s, Emma and Deirdre, best friends, who were doing this as a sort of annual tradition. And then there was Owen, in his 50s, quiet, carrying expensive gear but not bragging about it. On the first day, he told me he had done the Appalachian Trail twice, but that was 20 years ago. First 2 days went smooth. Weather held. Everyone kept pace. We camped at designated sites, ate freeze-dried meals that nobody complained about, told the usual stories around the fire. Corey opened up a little. Turned out he was going through a divorce. The women were nurses from Asheville. Owen had just retired from teaching. Brad and Jennifer were celebrating their anniversary. Normal people doing a normal thing. On the 3rd morning, we woke up to fog. Not unusual for this elevation, this time of year. It rolled in thick and white, erasing everything beyond 30 feet. I've hiked in worse. I told everyone to stay close, keep the person ahead of them in sight at all times, and we'd take it slow. The trail was well marked. I had my GPS and a backup compass. We'd be fine. We started out around 8. The fog didn't lift. If anything, it got thicker as we climbed. Sound does strange things in fog like this. Everything gets muffled and distant, but somehow also sharper. Your own breathing sounds loud. Footsteps seemed to come from the wrong direction. Around mid-morning, Corey asked if we could take a break. Said his knee was acting up. I called a halt near a flat section of trail where a few large rocks made natural seats. Everyone dropped their packs, pulled out water bottles. The fog pressed in around us like a wall. You couldn't see the trees anymore, just gray shapes that might have been trunks or might have been nothing. That's when Emma said, "Does anyone else hear that?" We all went quiet. At first, I didn't hear anything except the usual forest sounds, the drip of moisture off leaves, the distant rush of a creek somewhere downhill. Then I caught it. A voice. Faint, like someone calling from far away. I couldn't make out words, just the rhythm of speech. "Probably another hiking group," Brad said. I frowned. We were miles from any other trail. And the voice didn't sound right. It wasn't getting closer or farther away. Just steady, same volume, same indistinct tone. "Let's keep moving," I said. We hiked for another hour. The voice faded, then came back, then faded again. Nobody mentioned it, but I could tell everyone was listening for it. Owen kept looking over his shoulder. Deirdre stayed close to Emma, closer than before. By early afternoon, we reached what should have been a ridge overlook. On a clear day, you can see 3 states from that point. Today, it was just white. I checked my GPS. We were on track, maybe slightly west of where I wanted to be, but nothing concerning. I decided we'd camp at the next designated site, about 2 miles ahead. That's when I realized I couldn't hear Corey's footsteps anymore. I stopped, did a quick head count. 5 people. Corey wasn't there. "When did you last see him?" I asked Owen, who'd been hiking just ahead of where Corey should have been. Owen blinked. "I don't know. 5 minutes? 10? I thought he was behind me." I called out Corey's name. Nothing. Called again, louder. The fog seemed to swallow the sound. "Everyone stay here, don't move." I dropped my pack and started backtracking. 30 feet, 50 feet. I should have seen him by now, should have heard something. I called his name over and over. Brad came up behind me. "I'll help look." "No. Everyone needs to stay together, that's the rule." But Brad was already past me, walking into the fog, calling for Corey. I grabbed his shoulder and pulled him back harder than I meant to. "Listen to me. You stay with the group. I'll find him." I went back another 100 yards, then 200. My GPS said I was retracing our exact path. There were footprints in the soft mud, our boots, but I couldn't tell which were fresh and which we'd made an hour ago. The fog played tricks with distance. I'd think I was walking in a straight line, and then realize I'd curved without noticing. After 20 minutes, I returned to the group. Nobody said anything, but I saw it in their faces. The same thing I was thinking. We spent an hour searching in a grid pattern, staying within shouting distance of each other. I had a whistle, the kind guides carry for emergencies. I blew it every few minutes. Standard protocol. 3 short bursts. If Corey heard it, he'd know to follow the sound. If he was able to follow the sound, nothing. No response. No sign of him. Brad kept suggesting we spread out more, cover more ground. I had to keep pulling him back. "That's how we lose more people," I told him. He didn't like it, but he listened. Jennifer stayed close to him, her hand on his arm, whispering things I couldn't hear. Emma and Deirdre searched together, moving as one unit. Owen worked methodically, checking behind trees, under fallen logs, anywhere a person might have sheltered or collapsed. At one point, I found something. A granola bar wrapper, the same brand Corey had been eating during our morning break. It was sitting on top of a flat rock, perfectly placed, like someone had set it there deliberately. Not dropped, not discarded, placed. I picked it up. The wrapper was dry. How was it dry? Everything out here was soaked with moisture from the fog. I turned it over in my hands, looking for some explanation. There wasn't one. "Did you find something?" Emma called out. I almost told her, but something stopped me. Call it instinct. Call it the same part of my brain that was starting to understand we weren't dealing with a simple case of someone wandering off trail. "No," I said, "nothing." I made the decision to set up camp right there, off trail, in a somewhat flat area that wasn't ideal, but was safer than wandering in the fog. I told everyone we'd resume searching at first light. I radioed base, but the fog was interfering with the signal. Got maybe 1 word in 5 through the static. I kept trying every 15 minutes. The temperature was dropping. I could see everyone's breath now. We worked together to set up the tents, nobody talking much. The silence felt heavy. like the fog had weight to it. Jennifer was crying quietly while she hammered in tent stakes. Brad put his arm around her but didn't say anything. What could he say? Owen came up to me while I was trying the radio again. You think he's still alive? I don't know. How long can someone last out here, in this weather? Depends. If he found shelter, if he stayed calm, maybe a couple days. But what? I looked at him. Owen had been calm all day, almost unnaturally calm. Now I could see cracks in that composure. His hands were shaking slightly. But people do strange things when they panic, I said. They run, they don't think. They just run. He nodded slowly. I should have been paying more attention. I was right in front of him. I should have noticed. It's not your fault. Whose fault is it then? I didn't have an answer for that. We didn't make a fire. The wood was too wet and nobody felt like it anyway. People sat in their tents with the flaps open, not talking much. Emma asked if this had ever happened to me before. I told her no, which was true. People got tired, people got scared, people complained. But I'd never lost someone. Around 9 p.m., Deirdre came out of her tent. I heard him, she said. I heard Corey. Where? She pointed into the fog, south, off the trail. He was calling for help. I grabbed my flashlight. Did anyone else hear it? Nobody had. But Deirdre was certain. It was his voice, I know it was. Emma came out of the tent behind her. Dee, maybe you just thought you heard... No, I heard him. It was definitely him. Deirdre's voice was rising. He was calling my name. He said, Deirdre, help me. Clear as day. I looked at Emma. She shook her head slightly, a tiny gesture that said she hadn't heard anything. Brad and Jennifer emerged from their tent. Owen stood in the entrance to his, watching. I'm not crazy, Deirdre said. She was starting to cry. I know what I heard. I didn't want to say what I was thinking. That sound moves strangely in fog. That stress makes you hear things that might not be there. Instead, I said, I'll check it out. Everyone else stay here. I'm coming with you, Deirdre said. No, you stay here with Emma. But he called my name. He needs help. If he does, I'll find him. But I need you to stay here. Can you do that for me? She nodded, but I could see she didn't want to. Emma put an arm around her shoulders and guided her back into their tent. I walked in the direction Deirdre had pointed, sweeping my flashlight back and forth. The beam barely penetrated the fog, just lit up a shifting wall of white. I called Corey's name, listened, called again. Then I heard it too. A voice. Not words, just sound. It could have been Corey, could have been anyone. Could have been wind through rocks that sounded almost human. But it sounded like it was calling. Like it wanted something. I walked toward it. The ground sloped downward. I had to steady myself against trees. The voice stayed ahead of me, same distance, never getting closer. After 10 minutes, I stopped. I was off trail, in fog, at night, chasing a sound I couldn't locate. Everything I trained people not to do. And then the voice changed. It wasn't just sound anymore. It formed a word. Help! Clear. Distinct. Corey's voice, I was sure of it. Corey, where are you? Help me! Keep talking! I'm coming! I pushed forward, moving faster now, calling out every few steps. The voice kept responding, always just ahead, always just out of reach. My flashlight beam caught something, a shape in the fog. I moved toward it. It was a tree, just a tree. The fog had made it look like something else. Corey! Nothing. The voice had stopped. I stood there, breathing hard, and realized how far I'd come, how far from camp. I tried to retrace my steps, but everything looked the same. Trees, fog, darkness. I turned around and started back. That's when I realized I wasn't sure which direction the camp was. I stood still and tried to think logically. I'd walked downhill. Camp was uphill. Simple. I started climbing. 5 minutes later, I should have seen the lights from the tents. I didn't see anything. I took out my GPS. The screen was blank. Battery dead, even though I'd charged it that morning. I tried my radio. Static. I tried my phone, knowing there was no signal, but hoping. Nothing. I kept climbing. The slope seemed steeper than before. I was breathing hard. My flashlight flickered, dimmed, then went out completely. I smacked it against my palm. It came back on for a few seconds, then died again. I stood in the dark, in the fog, and I won't lie to you, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Real fear. Not worry, not concern. Fear. I called out, "Brad! Owen! Anyone!" I heard movement to my left. Footsteps. I turned toward them. "Hello?" The footsteps stopped, then started again, circling me. I couldn't see anything. Couldn't even see my own hands in front of my face. "Who's there?" The footsteps came closer. I could hear breathing. Not mine, someone else's. Slow and steady. "Corey?" The breathing stopped. Then, from behind me, a voice. My voice, my exact voice, like a recording. "Corey?" I spun around. Nothing. Silence. Then my voice again, from a different direction. "Corey?" I didn't move. I counted my own breaths. Tried to stay calm. Tried to remember my training. Hypothermia can cause hallucinations. So can stress. So can a dozen other things. The voice, my voice, spoke again. Closer. "Who's there?" I started walking, didn't care what direction, just walked. Uphill, downhill didn't matter. I crashed through brush, tripped over roots, kept moving. My lungs burned, my legs shook. I don't know how long I walked. Could have been 20 minutes, could have been 2 hours. Eventually, I saw a light. Small, orange, flickering. I moved toward it. It was a tent. My tent. The camp. I stumbled into the clearing and collapsed. Owen was crouched by the entrance to his tent. He stood up when he saw me. "Jesus, we thought you were gone too." "Too?" He didn't say anything, just looked at me. Brad emerged from his tent, then Jennifer, then Emma. 4 people. Deirdre wasn't there. "Where's Deirdre?" Emma's face crumpled. "She went looking for you. About an hour ago. She wouldn't wait." I sat on the ground and put my head in my hands. 2 people. I'd lost 2 people. We didn't sleep. We sat together in Brad and Jennifer's tent, the biggest one, and waited for dawn. Nobody talked. Around 3 a.m., we heard footsteps outside. Everyone froze. The footsteps circled the tent. Once, twice, then stopped. Brad unzipped the tent flap and shone his flashlight out. Nothing. But there were tracks in the mud. Bare feet. No shoes. Toes splayed wide. "What the hell?" Brad whispered. At first light, the fog was still thick, but the world felt less hostile. We packed up in silence. I made the decision to head straight for the nearest ranger station. Bushwhacking if we had to. We'd come back with a search team, with dogs and radios that worked and people who knew what they were doing. We hiked for 4 hours. The fog started to lift around noon. We were off trail, had been for a while, but I knew generally which direction to go. South and east. Keep the sun on your left, basic navigation. That's when Owen stopped. "Look." Ahead of us, maybe 50 yards, there was a tent. Not ours, someone else's. Small, green, looked like it had been there for a while. The rainfly was torn, gear scattered around it. We approached slowly. I called out. No response. As we got closer, I could see more details. A backpack, leaning against a tree, partially unzipped. A water filter lying in the dirt. A pair of hiking boots, laces still tied, sitting side by side like someone had just stepped out of them. But what caught my attention was the tent itself. The zipper was open from the inside, like whoever had been in there had left in a hurry, or had been taken. I looked inside the tent, empty. Sleeping bag still laid out, half out of its stuff sack. A water bottle, still half full. A paperback novel, pages swollen with moisture. And a map spread out on the sleeping bag. A map of this exact area. On the map, written in pen, a single word repeated over and over until it covered the whole page. The letters got smaller and smaller as they filled in every blank space, crammed into margins, written over trail lines and elevation markers. Lost, 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 lost. I picked up the map. My hands were shaking. On the back, more writing, a date, 3 years ago, September, same as now, and a name, Sarah Vickers. "What does it say?" Brad asked from behind me. I folded the map and shoved it in my pocket. "Nothing important. Let me see it. We need to go, now." "Why? What did it say?" I turned to face them. All 4 of them were staring at me. Emma's face was pale. Owen looked like he might be sick. Jennifer was holding Brad's arm so tight her knuckles were white. "We're leaving," I said. "Back to the truck right now." "What about Corey?" Emma said. "What about Deirdre?" "The search teams will find them, but we need to get out of here." "You know something," Brad said. "What did that map say?" I didn't answer. I started walking. After a moment, I heard them following. We walked faster. Nobody asked questions. The terrain started to look familiar. We hit a trail I recognized, followed it for an hour, and came out at a fire road where my truck was parked. I've never been so relieved to see asphalt. I drove straight to the ranger station, told them everything. They organized a search. Helicopters, days, volunteers. They found Corey's pack on the 4th day, about 3 miles from where we'd last seen him. It was sitting in the middle of the trail, neatly placed, nothing missing, no sign of Corey. They never found Deirdre. The official report said exposure, disorientation, possibly fell and couldn't call for help. The mountains are dangerous. People get lost. It happens. I attended both memorial services. Corey's ex-wife was there, the divorce apparently not finalized. She barely looked at me. Deirdre's parents asked me questions I couldn't answer. How could she just vanish? Wasn't I watching? Wasn't I responsible? I was. I am. The Ranger Service conducted an investigation. Standard procedure when someone goes missing on a guided tour. They interviewed everyone. Brad and Jennifer told them about the fog, about hearing voices. Owen talked about the footprints. Emma broke down crying and couldn't finish her statement. They interviewed me for 3 hours, took my GPS, my radio, my notes, asked the same questions over and over. "When did you last see them? Did you follow proper safety protocols? Had you been drinking? Were you taking any medications that might impair judgment?" No formal charges were filed. Negligence is hard to prove in situations like this. The fog, the terrain, the isolation, these things happen in the mountains. That's what they told me. These things happen. I sold all my gear within a month. Tent, sleeping bag, my good boots, the compass my father gave me when I first started guiding. I couldn't look at them anymore. Every piece of equipment felt contaminated by what had happened. I don't guide anymore. I work at an outdoor supply store in Knoxville. I sell tents and backpacks and trail mix to people who ask me about the best hiking spots. I tell them the popular trails, the safe ones. I never mention the Smokies. When someone asks about multi-day treks in that area, I tell them it's closed for trail maintenance. It's easier than explaining. My boss at the store knows what happened. Most people in the outdoor community around here do. It's a small world. News travels. Sometimes I catch customers looking at me, recognition in their eyes. The guide who lost 2 people, the one who came back. I still have the map, the one from that abandoned tent. I looked up Sarah Vickers when I got home. Found an old missing person report from 3 years ago, 26 years old. Solo hiker. Last seen at the same trailhead where we'd started. Never found. The report mentioned that search teams had located her tent, but no trace of her. The file was eventually closed, presumed dead. There have been others. I spent weeks going through old reports, newspaper archives, forum posts, going back 20 years, maybe more. People who went into those mountains and never came out. Some of their camps were found, some weren't. But there's a pattern, if you know how to look for it. September. Fog. Voices. I tried to tell the rangers, showed them what I'd found. They listened politely and told me I was experiencing trauma, that I should talk to someone. They gave me a card for a therapist who specializes in outdoor-related PTSD. I went twice. She wanted to talk about survivor's guilt, about self-blame, about moving forward. I stopped going. Sometimes, late at night, I think about that voice I heard in the fog. My voice, speaking my words back to me. And I think about those footprints. Bare feet. No shoes. I think about the fact that when we counted people in the tent that last night, when we were all together, I'm not sure I counted correctly. I'm not sure there were only 4 people with me. Because when I close my eyes, I can still see someone sitting in the back of that tent, behind Owen, not moving, not speaking, just sitting there. And when I try to remember their face, I can't. Like my brain won't let me hold on to it. But I remember other things. The way they breathed. Slow and steady. The way they smelled. Like copper and earth. Like old blood and soil. And I remember, though I've tried not to, that when we did the final head count before we left that morning, before we found the abandoned tent, I could have sworn there were 6 of us. Not 5. 6. But when I try to remember who the 6th person was, my mind goes blank. It's like trying to remember a dream that's already fading. The fog comes back to the Smokies every September. I don't go up there anymore. But sometimes I drive close, park at an overlook, and watch it roll through the valleys. And sometimes, if I listen carefully, I can hear voices in it. One of them sounds like Corey. One of them sounds like Deirdre. And one of them sounds exactly like me. But there's a 4th voice now, one I don't recognize. Maybe it's Sarah Vickers. Maybe it's someone else who got lost before her. Or maybe it's someone who's going to get lost next year, or the year after that, calling out from a future that's already happened. The mountains are patient. The fog always comes back. And I think something in those mountains is still collecting. My name is David Thorne, and I need to tell someone about what happened at Blackwater Junction before I forget the details. I'm already starting to lose some of it, like my brain is protecting itself by filing certain memories where I can't reach them. But I can still remember enough to know I should never have gone back. I grew up in eastern Kentucky, near a town called Hazard. Left when I was 18 for college in Lexington and stayed there for 15 years. Built a decent life. Got married, had a daughter. Then my marriage fell apart in the way marriages do when people grow in different directions and can't find their way back to each other. The divorce was amicable, or as amicable as those things can be. My ex-wife kept the house. I moved into an apartment that smelled like the previous tenant's cat. My daughter, Mia, was 7. I got her every other weekend and 2 weeks in the summer. I wanted those visits to be special, wanted her to have good memories of time with her dad. So, when my buddy from high school, Carson, invited me to bring Mia up to his family's cabin for a long weekend, I said yes without thinking twice. Carson had inherited the place from his grandfather. It was deep in the woods outside Harlan, no electricity, no running water, but it had 4 walls and a roof. Perfect for a father-daughter adventure, he said. Mia was excited. She'd been asking to go camping for months. She packed her little backpack with toys and snacks and a stuffed rabbit named Mr. Hopkins that went everywhere with her. I loaded up my truck with supplies, told my ex I'd have Mia back Sunday evening, and headed east on Route 421. The cabin was about 40 minutes down a dirt road that barely qualified as a road. More like 2 tire tracks through the trees with grass growing in the middle. Carson's truck was already there when we arrived. He came out onto the porch, beer in hand, grinning. "Welcome to paradise," he said. The cabin was small but solid. 1 main room with a wood stove, 2 bedrooms barely big enough for a bed each, and an outhouse about 50 feet into the trees. Carson had brought his girlfriend, Alyssa, who worked at the same plant he did. She was nice, a little quiet, but she warmed up to Mia quickly. By the time we got the fire going and cooked hot dogs on sticks, Mia was chattering away about school and her friends and whether there were bears in these woods. "Sometimes," Carson said, "but they're more scared of you than you are of them." That first night, we played cards by lantern light. Mia fell asleep curled up on the couch with Mr. Hopkins tucked under her arm. I carried her to the smaller bedroom and tucked her in. She didn't stir. Carson and I stayed up late drinking beer and catching up. He'd been working at the coal plant for 8 years. Hated it, but it paid the bills. Alyssa had family in Virginia. They were thinking about moving, maybe next year. Normal conversation. The kind you have when you're realizing you're not young anymore, but you're not sure when that happened. Around midnight, I asked if he'd heard anything from some of our other high school friends. He rattled off a few names. Then he said, "You remember Marcus Lane?" I did. Marcus had been a year behind us. Quiet kid, kept to himself mostly. Smart, but in a way that made people uneasy, like he was always thinking about something he wasn't sharing. "He disappeared," Carson said, "about 6 months ago." "Disappeared how?" "Just gone. Left his apartment in Harlan, left his job, left everything. Nobody's seen him since. His mom filed a missing person report, but nothing came of it." I didn't think much of it at the time. People disappear sometimes. Sometimes they want to disappear. The next morning, Mia woke me up early, bouncing on the bed. "Dad, can we explore?" We ate breakfast, oatmeal with brown sugar, then headed out. Carson and Alyssa wanted to sleep in. I had a map of the area, rough and hand-drawn but serviceable. There were a few trails that looped through the woods. Nothing strenuous. Perfect for a 7-year-old. Mia ran ahead, stopping every few feet to examine a leaf or a rock or a stick that looked interesting. I followed at a distance, close enough to keep her in sight but far enough to let her feel independent. The woods were beautiful that morning. Sun filtering through the canopy, birds calling to each other. The kind of peace that makes you remember why you loved this place as a kid. We hiked for maybe an hour before we came across something strange. There was a tree, a big oak, maybe 3 feet in diameter, and driven into the trunk, about chest height, were dozens of nails, not random. They formed a pattern, a spiral that curved inward toward a center point. Mia touched one of the nails. "Why would someone do this?" "I don't know, honey. Does it hurt the tree?" "Probably a little." I looked closer. The nails were old, heads rusted brown and orange. Some had bent from being hammered in at odd angles. The spiral pattern was deliberate, mathematical almost. It reminded me of something I'd seen in a book once, some kind of Celtic symbol, or maybe something older. The center point of the spiral was marked with a nail that had been painted red, the paint flaking but still visible. Around the base of the tree, I noticed something else. Small objects arranged in a circle. Stones, mostly, but also a few coins, a rusted key, a broken watch with no hands. Like offerings. Like someone had been leaving things here. "Dad, can we go?" Mia's voice was small. She'd stepped away from the tree back onto the trail. "Yeah, baby, let's keep moving." We kept walking. About a quarter-mile further, we found another tree. Same thing. Nails in a spiral pattern. This time there were more, maybe 100, and they were rusty, like they'd been there for years. But the center nail on this one was fresh. No rust. Shiny silver, recently placed. I pulled out my phone, thinking I'd take a picture, maybe show Carson later, ask if he knew anything about it. But when I looked at the screen, the time was wrong. It said 3:47 a.m. I knew that wasn't right. It had been mid-morning when we left the cabin. I reset the time manually, but it immediately jumped back to 3:47 a.m. "That's weird," I muttered. "What is?" Mia asked. "Nothing, just my phone acting up." But I was starting to feel something I didn't want to name. A prickle at the back of my neck. The woods around us had gone quiet. No birds, no insects, just silence. I felt a prick of unease but shook it off. People did weird things in the woods. Art projects, territory markers, who knows? We looped back toward the cabin. Mia was getting tired and hungry. We'd been gone almost 2 hours. That's when I heard it. A phone ringing, not a cell phone, an old-fashioned ring, tinny and distant. I stopped. Mia heard it too. "Is that your phone?" she asked. "No, baby. Mine doesn't have a signal out here." The ringing stopped, then started again. It was coming from deeper in the woods, off the trail. I looked at Mia. She was staring in the direction of the sound. "Someone lost their phone," she said. "Maybe. Should we help them find it?" Every instinct told me to say no, but it was broad daylight. We were maybe 20 minutes from the cabin, and it was just a phone. "Stay close to me," I said. We walked toward the sound. The ringing stopped, started again. It was louder now. The trees here were different, older, their branches twisted and gnarled. The ground was soft, almost spongy under my boots. Mushrooms grew in clusters around the bases of trees, some of them as big as dinner plates. We pushed through some underbrush and came into a small clearing. In the center was an old rotary phone, black, sitting on a tree stump. The receiver was off the hook, resting beside it. The phone wasn't connected to anything, no wires, no base, just the phone. And it was ringing. The stump itself was strange. It was too smooth, too perfect, like it had been cut with precision tools, not a chainsaw. And it was sitting in the exact center of the clearing, surrounded by a ring of bare earth where nothing grew. Mia stepped forward. I grabbed her shoulder. "Don't touch it." "Why not?" "Just don't." The ringing stopped. For a moment, everything was quiet. Then the receiver moved, just slightly, like someone had nudged it, or like something inside it was trying to get out. I noticed something carved into the side of the stump. Numbers. 3:47. The same time my phone had shown. "Dad, I want to go back." "Yeah, me too." As we turned to leave, I glanced back at the phone one more time. The receiver was in a different position. I was sure of it. It had been lying flat. Now it was propped up slightly, like someone had just set it down after using it. We turned and walked quickly back to the trail. Neither of us spoke. When the cabin came into view, I felt my chest unclench. Carson was outside, chopping wood. He looked up when he saw us. You two look like you've seen a ghost." I didn't tell him about the phone. It sounded crazy. Even thinking about it now, it sounds crazy. That afternoon passed normally. We played games, ate sandwiches, took a nap. Mia seemed to forget about the phone. I tried to. Around dusk, Carson suggested we take a walk to the ridge overlook, about half a mile from the cabin. "You could see for miles from up there," he said. I didn't want to leave Mia alone, but Alyssa offered to stay with her. They were coloring in a book at the table, both absorbed. I agreed. Carson and I hiked up to the ridge. He was right. The view was stunning. Rolling hills stretching into haze, the sun sinking orange and red. We stood there for a while, not talking, just watching. "You ever think about moving back?" Carson asked. "To Hazard?" "No, there's nothing there for me anymore." "Yeah, I get that." On the way back, as it was getting dark, Carson stopped. "You hear that?" I listened. At first, nothing. Then I heard it. A phone ringing, same tinny ring as before. Carson frowned. "Who the hell has a signal out here?" "It's not a cell phone," I said. "It's an old phone, rotary." He looked at me. "What are you talking about?" I told him about the phone Mia and I had found. He laughed, but it was forced. "Someone's messing with you." "Maybe." The ringing stopped. We walked back to the cabin. Alyssa met us at the door. Her face was pale. "Mia's gone," she said. I felt my stomach drop. "What?" "She was right here. We were coloring." I looked away for 1 second, maybe 2, and when I looked back she was gone. I've been calling for her. I pushed past her into the cabin. "Mia! Mia!" No answer. I checked both bedrooms, the outhouse, around the back of the cabin. Nothing. Carson grabbed flashlights. We started searching, calling her name over and over. Alyssa was crying. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. She was right there. We were coloring pictures of horses and she asked me to get her the blue crayon from the other room, and I was gone for maybe 5 seconds. "It's okay," I said, even though it wasn't. Even though my heart was hammering so hard I could barely breathe. She probably just wandered off. Kids do that. But Mia didn't wander. She was a cautious kid. Always asked permission before going anywhere. We searched the immediate area around the cabin, called her name until our voices were hoarse. The woods were dark now. Flashlight beams cutting through trees, creating shadows that looked like small figures that weren't there. After 10 minutes, I heard her. "Daddy?" Her voice was coming from the woods, the same direction we'd walked that morning. I ran toward it, flashlight bouncing. "Mia, where are you? Daddy, come here." I broke through the underbrush into the clearing. Mia was standing in front of the tree stump. The phone was still there. The receiver was in her hand, pressed to her ear. Carson caught up behind me, breathing hard. "Jesus Christ," he whispered. "Mia, put that down." She looked at me. Her eyes were strange. Not scared, not curious. Empty. Like she was looking at me but not seeing me. Like she was looking through me at something else. "They want to talk to you," she said. She held out the receiver. "Mia, put it down and come here." I kept my voice calm, but inside I was screaming. "Right now, baby, come to Daddy. They know your name," she said. "They know everything. They showed me." "Showed you what?" "Where you went. All the places you went. They have pictures." My blood went cold. "What pictures?" "Pictures of you. Lots of them, from when you were here before." "I've never been here before, Mia. This is my first time at Carson's cabin." She tilted her head, still holding out the receiver. "That's not what they said." I stepped forward and took the receiver from her hand. I don't know why. I should have grabbed her and run, but I took it. I put it to my ear. At first, nothing, just static. Then a voice, my voice, speaking words I'd said earlier that day. Stay close to me. Then another phrase. Yeah, me too. Then something I hadn't said out loud, something I'd only thought, standing in this clearing the first time. This doesn't feel right. I dropped the receiver. It swung on its cord even though there was no cord. The receiver hung in the air, defying physics, slowly rotating. Mia was staring at me. Did you hear them? She asked. We're leaving, now. I picked her up and ran back to the cabin. Carson and Alyssa were waiting. I told them we had to go. Carson started to argue, but he saw my face and stopped. We packed in 5 minutes, threw everything in the trucks. Carson and Alyssa took their truck. I buckled Mia into mine. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely get the key in the ignition. We drove down the dirt road, headlights cutting through darkness. About halfway to the highway, Mia spoke. They wanted to tell you something. Who? The people on the phone. There were no people, baby. It was broken. A trick. They said you'd come back. I looked at her in the rearview mirror. I'm not coming back, ever. She was quiet for a moment, then she said, They said you already did. I didn't ask what she meant. I drove faster. We got back to Lexington around midnight. I called my ex-wife, told her I was bringing Mia back early, that something had come up. She was annoyed, but didn't push. I dropped Mia off, hugged her longer than usual. She seemed normal, happy even, talking about the trees and the hot dogs and the card games. She didn't mention the phone. I went back to my apartment and sat in the dark for a long time. A week later, Carson called. He sounded strange, distant. Did you hear about Marcus Lane? He asked. What about him? They found him, or what was left of him. What do you mean? He was in the woods, near Harlan, about 2 miles from my cabin. Been dead for months, they said. Animals got to him, but David, here's the thing. He paused. I could hear him breathing. They found a phone next to him, old rotary phone, and he had the receiver in his hand. My apartment suddenly felt too small, too quiet. That doesn't mean anything, could be a coincidence. They also found something in his pockets. Photographs. Dozens of them, Polaroids. Of what? Of the cabin, of the woods around it, of that clearing where you found the phone. His voice dropped lower. And David, some of them were of people at the cabin, from different years, different decades, looks like. My grandfather is in some of them, and my dad, and people I don't even recognize. Why are you telling me this? Because you're in one of them too. The room tilted. That's impossible. I know. But I'm looking at it right now. The sheriff let me see the evidence photos. It's you, David, standing by that tree stump, wearing the same clothes you wore last weekend. But the photo is dated on the back. It says 1987. I was born in 1985. That's not possible, I said again. I know, but it's you. I'd know you anywhere. He paused. The sheriff is calling it a cold case. Doesn't know what to make of the phone or the photos. Thinks maybe Marcus was into some weird occult stuff. But David, I've been thinking about what Mia said. About them having pictures. About you being there before. I hung up. I didn't want to hear more. That was 3 months ago. I haven't spoken to Carson since. I tried calling him a few times, but it just rings. Nobody answers. I called his work. They said he quit 2 weeks after our trip. No notice. Just didn't show up one day. Alyssa called them and said he'd left, that she didn't know where he went. When I tried calling Alyssa, her number was disconnected. I drove out to Carson's cabin once, about a month ago. I told myself I was just checking on him, making sure he was okay. But I knew that wasn't true. I needed to see that clearing again. Needed to prove to myself it was just a phone, just a weird coincidence. Just stress and exhaustion playing tricks. The cabin was empty. Windows boarded up. A for sale sign at the end of the dirt road, so faded I could barely read it. I walked into the woods, following the path Mia and I had taken. Found the trees with the nails. The spirals were still there, but there were more now. 3 more trees, each with fresh nails driven in. I didn't go looking for the clearing. I turned around and drove home. Mia still asks when we're going camping again. I tell her soon. I tell her when the weather's better. I tell her a lot of things that aren't true. Last week, I got a package in the mail. No return address. Inside was a photograph. It showed the clearing with the tree stump, and on the stump, the phone. But this time there was someone in the photo, standing in the background, half hidden by trees. It was me. I don't remember anyone taking that picture. I don't remember standing there. But there was more in the package. A second photograph, also a Polaroid. This one showed the cabin, taken from the woods. Through the window, I could see figures inside. I got a magnifying glass to look closer. One of the figures was Mia, coloring at the table. And standing behind her, barely visible in the shadows of the cabin, was someone else. Someone tall. Someone watching her. The figure's hand was extended, reaching toward Mia's shoulder. That photo was taken from outside, while Alyssa said Mia disappeared. While Alyssa was getting the blue crayon from the other room. And there was a third item in the package. A piece of paper torn from a notebook. Written on it in pencil, in handwriting that looked like a child's, were 3 words repeated over and over, filling the entire page. Answer the phone. Answer the phone. Answer the phone. I burned everything. The photos, the note, the package, watched them curl and blacken in my sink. But I know what Mia meant now. When she said I'd already come back. Because I dream about that clearing every night. And in the dreams, I'm walking toward the phone. And it's ringing. And I absolutely know, that if I answer it, I'll hear something I'm not supposed to hear. Something that will explain everything. Sometimes I wake up and my phone is in my hand, even though I went to bed without it. Sometimes I find myself standing in my kitchen at 3:47 a.m., which is the only time my microwave clock ever seems to show anymore. Sometimes I catch myself driving east on Route 421 toward Harlan, with no memory of getting in my car. Last night, Mia stayed over. We watched a movie, ate popcorn, drew pictures, normal father-daughter things. But before bed, she asked me something. "Dad, why do you go to the woods at night?" My blood froze. "What do you mean, honey?" "I see you sometimes, when I'm sleeping at Mom's house. I look out my window and you're in the backyard, by the trees, just standing there, looking at something in your hands. Mia, I don't go to your mom's house at night." She looked at me with those same empty eyes she'd had in the clearing. "I know, but you do." This morning, after I dropped her off, I checked my phone's location history. The app I never turn off, the one that tracks everywhere I go. According to the data, 3 nights ago I drove to my ex-wife's house. I was there for 47 minutes. Then I drove east. The GPS trail ends in Harlan, at the coordinates of Carson's cabin. I don't remember any of this, and the worst part is I want to answer it. I want to know what they're trying to tell me. Because I think I already know. I think I've always known, somewhere deep down, in a place I can't reach when I'm awake. I think the phone isn't asking me to come back. I think it's telling me I never left. And every night when I dream about walking toward that stump, when I dream about picking up that receiver, I get a little closer. My hand reaches out a little farther. Last night, in the dream, my fingers touched the plastic. Tonight, I think I'm going to answer. They say the worst decisions are the ones you make when you're running from something else. I was running from a lot that summer. 32 years old, unemployed for the 6th month in a row, living in my sister's guest room in Roanoke while she gave me those careful looks that meant she was worried but didn't want to say it out loud. I needed to prove I could do something, anything, on my own terms. So, when I saw the job posting for a fire watch position in the George Washington National Forest, I applied the same day. The posting had been buried on some obscure government jobs website. 6 weeks, minimum wage, housing provided, no experience necessary. Must be comfortable with extended periods of isolation and minimal human contact. That last line should have been a warning. Instead, it felt like an invitation. My sister, Rachel, thought I was crazy. "You can barely handle being alone for a weekend," she said. "What makes you think you can do 6 weeks?" "I need this," I told her. And I did. Not just the money, though that was part of it. I needed to prove I wasn't completely falling apart, that I could still function, that the months of unemployment and failed job interviews and rejection emails hadn't broken me completely. The interview was a phone call that lasted maybe 10 minutes. They asked if I was comfortable with isolation, if I had any medical conditions, if I could hike. I said yes to everything. A week later, I got an email with coordinates, a list of supplies to bring, and a date to report. August 15th. I'd be up there for 6 weeks. Alone. The email also included a brief history of the tower. Built in 1952, decommissioned in 1987, then brought back into service in 2003 when budget cuts forced the Forest Service to rely on fire watch again instead of aerial surveillance. The tower had been staffed every summer since then, usually by young forestry students or recent graduates looking for an adventure. I was neither of those things, but they were desperate for someone, anyone, willing to take the position this late in the season. My sister drove me to the trailhead. She helped me load my pack, gave me a hug that lasted a few seconds too long, told me to call when I got back. I said I would. Then I started walking. The hike was harder than I expected. The trail was steep and poorly maintained, overgrown in places. I had to stop every 20 minutes to catch my breath. My pack felt like it weighed 100 pounds even though I'd tried to keep it minimal. By the time I reached mile 5, my legs were shaking, and I was seriously reconsidering this entire plan. The tower was 7 miles in, straight up a ridge that had my lungs screaming by mile 3. The ranger, who'd been stationed there before me, had left 2 days earlier. I'd be overlapping with nobody, just a handoff of keys and codes that happened via a lockbox chained to a tree at the base of the trail. Inside, a key to the tower, a radio frequency card, and a note written in shaky handwriting that said, "Don't use the stairs after midnight." I stared at that note for a solid minute. Then I folded it, put it in my pocket, and kept hiking. But I couldn't stop thinking about it. The handwriting was erratic, like it had been written in a hurry, or by someone whose hands were shaking. There was a small stain in the corner of the paper that looked like it might have been coffee. Or blood. I told myself it was coffee. The tower rose above the tree line like a skeleton. 50 feet of rusted metal beams, a small platform at the top with a cabin no bigger than a garden shed. Ladder rungs welded to the central support. I climbed slowly, testing each rung before putting my weight on it. At the top, I unlocked the cabin door and stepped inside. It was sparse. A cot against one wall, a desk with a radio and a pair of binoculars, a camp stove, a shelf with 3 books, and a logbook. 1 window on each of the 4 walls. No bathroom. There was an outhouse at the base of the tower, which meant climbing down every time I needed it. The view, though. You could see everything. Miles and miles of green rolling into blue haze. No roads, no buildings, just trees. I opened the logbook first. Standard entries going back weeks. Weather conditions, wildlife sightings. One entry from 2 weeks ago caught my eye. Heard something climbing the tower at 2:30 a.m. Checked, nothing there. Probably raccoons. Another entry from 3 days before that. Same sound, third night in a row, starting to think this place is getting to me. The last entry was dated 2 days ago, the day the previous ranger had left. Just 3 words, I can't stay. I flipped through earlier pages, going back months. Different handwriting, different rangers. But I noticed a pattern. Almost everyone mentioned hearing something at night. Footsteps. Scratching, breathing. And almost everyone left early. I closed the logbook and told myself it didn't mean anything. People got spooked in isolated places. It was normal. I unpacked my stuff, set up the cot, tested the radio. Got a response from the ranger station. Told them I was checked in. They told me to report anything unusual. Smoke, obviously, but also people where people shouldn't be. Lights at night. Anything that felt wrong. I said I would. That first day I found something else. Behind the camp stove, someone had carved words into the wooden wall. Small, barely visible unless you were looking for it. Don't answer if it calls your name. The first week was fine. Better than fine, actually. I fell into a routine. Wake up at dawn, make coffee on the camp stove, scan the horizon with the binoculars, checking for smoke. Log anything I saw, which was usually nothing. Eat a simple lunch, read one of the 3 books on the shelf, all of them westerns from the 1970s. Scan again at dusk. Eat dinner. Write in my own journal. Sleep. The isolation didn't bother me the way I thought it would. It was peaceful. No expectations. No one asking me what I was doing with my life. Just me and the trees and the sky. The first strange thing happened on day 9. I woke up in the middle of the night, maybe 2 or 3 in the morning. Something had pulled me out of sleep, but I didn't know what. I lay there listening. The wind moved through the tower's beams, making a low humming sound. Then I heard it. Footsteps, metal creaking. Someone was climbing the ladder. I sat up, heart pounding. Reached for the flashlight beside my cot. The footsteps were slow, deliberate. Rung by rung, getting closer. I stood and moved to the door. It was locked from the inside. I put my hand on the bolt. The footsteps stopped. I waited. Nothing. No knock. No voice. Just silence. I counted to 60. Then I unlocked the door and looked out. The platform was empty. I shone my flashlight down the ladder. Nothing. No one. I told myself I'd imagined it. Isolation does strange things to your brain. Creates sounds that aren't there. I locked the door and went back to bed. Took me a long time to fall asleep. The next night, it happened again. Same time. Footsteps climbing the ladder, stopping at the top. This time, I didn't get up. I just lay there listening. After a while, the footsteps descended, same slow pace. On the 3rd night, I decided to stay awake. I sat at the desk with a cup of coffee, watching the clock. At 2:47 a.m., I heard them. I grabbed the flashlight and moved to the door. Unlocked it. Waited until the footsteps stopped. Then I threw the door open and swept the light across the platform. Nothing. But there was something else. A smell. Faint but distinct. Copper and earth. Like old blood mixed with soil. I stepped out onto the platform and looked over the edge. The forest below was black. No moon. I couldn't see the ground. "Hello?" I called. My voice echoed. Nothing answered. I went back inside and locked the door. This time, I wedged the desk chair under the handle. The footsteps came every night after that, always around the same time, always stopping just outside the door. I stopped trying to see who it was. I'd just lie there, counting the creaks until they stopped. During the day, I tried to distract myself. I'd hike down to the outhouse and back just to move my body. I'd radio the ranger station and make small talk. Everything okay? Yeah, everything's fine. Any smoke? No, all clear. The ranger on the other end, a guy named Phil, started to sound concerned. You doing all right up there? He asked on day 17. Yeah, why? You sound tired. I'm not sleeping great. That happens. First time solo? Yeah. Gets easier. Give it another week. But it didn't get easier because then the knocking started. It wasn't on the door, it was on the windows. All 4 of them at the same time. Quick, sharp taps, like knuckles on glass. I'd spin around trying to see which window it was coming from, but it was all of them, synchronized. Then it would stop. I started keeping a detailed log of everything that happened. Not in the official logbook, but in my personal journal. I needed to document it. Needed to prove to myself I wasn't just losing my mind. Day 18. Footsteps at 2:47 a.m. Lasted approximately 7 minutes. No visual confirmation. Day 19. Footsteps at 2:47 a.m. Window knocking started at 3:15 a.m. Lasted 12 minutes. Day 20. Same pattern. Found scratches on east window frame. Fresh. Looked like fingernails. Day 21. Woke up to find the door unbolted. I know I locked it. I always lock it. That last entry scared me more than anything else. Because if I hadn't locked the door, if I'd forgotten, it meant I was losing touch with basic routines. And if I had locked it, it meant something had unlocked it from the outside. I covered the windows with blankets from my pack. Blocked out the light during the day, blocked out whatever was out there at night. The knocking continued, but at least I couldn't see the windows rattling. On day 22, I tried calling my sister on the radio, even though I knew it wouldn't work. The ranger station frequency was the only one that reached this far, but I was desperate to hear a familiar voice. Instead, I got static, and then, faintly, underneath the static I heard something. A voice. My voice. Saying words I'd spoken earlier that day. I can't do this anymore. I turned the radio off and didn't touch it again for 2 days. On day 23, I made a mistake. I'd run out of coffee and wasn't thinking clearly. I climbed down to the outhouse around 11 at night. I had my flashlight, kept it pointed at the ground in front of me. Did my business. Started climbing back up. Halfway up the ladder, my flashlight died. Just cut out. I smacked it. Nothing. I kept climbing in the dark, feeling for each rung. That's when I heard breathing. Close. Right beside me. Not above, not below. Beside me, like someone was clinging to the outside of the ladder, keeping pace. I froze. The breathing continued, slow, wet. I climbed faster. My hand slipped. I nearly fell, kept going. Reached the platform and scrambled inside, slammed the door, locked it, stood there gasping. The breathing was still there, right outside the door. I didn't move for the rest of the night. Just sat with my back against the wall, knife in my hand, waiting for dawn. When the sun came up, I checked the platform. There were marks, long scratches in the metal, like something had been dragged across it, or like something had clawed at it. I radioed Phil, told him I needed to come down. He asked why. I didn't know what to say. Because I'm hearing things? Because something's climbing the tower at night? I'd sound insane. I'm not feeling well, I said. I think I need to come down early. You've got 2 weeks left. I know. There was a pause. Then Phil said, The last guy said the same thing. What? The guy before you. Wanted to come down early. Said he wasn't sleeping. Said he kept hearing things. What happened to him? Another pause. He came down. He's fine. Can I talk to him? No. Why not? Because he won't talk about it. Look, if you need to come down, come down. But you won't get paid for the full stint. I needed the money. I needed it badly. 2 more weeks. I could do 2 more weeks. What did he hear? I asked. The guy before me. What exactly did he report? Phil was quiet for a long moment. Same things you're probably hearing. Footsteps, knocking. He said toward the end it started calling his name. Calling his name? Yeah. In his own voice, like a recording of himself. He said it knew things about him. Personal things, things he'd never told anyone. My skin went cold. And you still sent me up here? Look, we've had people up there for years. Most of them finish their stint just fine. Some people just can't handle the isolation. It plays tricks on your mind. Makes you hear things that aren't there. But what if they are there? There's nothing up there, Phil said. But his voice had changed, less certain. It's just a tower, just trees. Just your mind trying to fill the silence with something. You don't believe that? I'll stay, I said. That was a mistake. That night, the footsteps came at midnight instead of 2. They climbed fast. When they reached the top, the door handle rattled, shook hard, like someone was trying to force it. I grabbed the radio. Phil, someone's trying to get in. Static, then Phil's voice distant. Say again? Someone's at the door. They're trying to get in. There's no one up there. I'm telling you. The handle stopped rattling. Silence. False alarm, I said. Sorry. I didn't sleep that night. Or the next night. I stayed awake, sitting at the desk, watching the door. On the 3rd night, I started hallucinating. I saw shapes moving in the corners of the room, heard whispers in the wind. I knew they weren't real, but I couldn't make them stop. On day 30, I broke. I packed my stuff at dawn and started down the ladder. I was going home. Money or no money, I was done. I made it 3 rungs down when I looked up and saw someone standing on the platform, looking down at me. It was me. Same face, same clothes, same everything. I blinked. It was gone. I climbed back up. The platform was empty. I stood there shaking, trying to breathe. I went back inside. Unpacked. I don't know why. I should have kept going. But something in my brain had cracked, and I couldn't think straight anymore. The last week blurred together. I stopped logging, stopped radioing. I just sat and stared at the walls. The footsteps came every night, but I didn't care anymore. Let them come. Let them do whatever they wanted. But then it started calling my name. At first, I thought I was dreaming. I'd hear it faintly, like someone shouting from far away. Michael. My name. Over and over. Always in my own voice. By day 33, it was clearer, louder. Michael. Open the door. I didn't open the door. Michael, I need help. I put my hands over my ears. Michael, please, it's cold out here. On day 34, I looked in the mirror above the small sink. I barely recognized myself. Hollow eyes, sunken cheeks, beard grown wild. But it was my eyes that scared me most. They looked empty, like Mia's eyes in that clearing with the phone. Like I was looking at something far away, something I couldn't quite reach. I noticed something else. Behind me in the mirror, in the corner of the cabin, there was a shadow. But when I turned around, nothing was there. When I looked back at the mirror, the shadow was closer. I stopped looking in mirrors after that. On the final day, my sister showed up at the base of the tower. She'd driven out because I hadn't called, because the ranger station had told her I'd stopped reporting in. She climbed up and found me sitting on the floor, staring at nothing. Later, she told me I'd been talking when she found me, having a conversation with someone who wasn't there, answering questions, laughing at jokes only I could hear. She got me down, got me to a hospital. They said I was dehydrated and sleep-deprived, gave me fluids and sedatives, sent me home after 2 days. But before I left the hospital, one of the nurses pulled my sister aside. I overheard them talking in the hallway. The nurse said they'd done a full medical workup. Everything was normal except one thing. My voice was different. Not damaged, just different. Like the pitch had changed slightly. My sister said she hadn't noticed. The nurse said most people wouldn't. But she had perfect pitch, used to sing professionally, and she was certain my voice wasn't the same as when I'd been admitted. "It's like he's doing an impression of himself," she said. I never told anyone what I saw, what I heard. They'd think I'd had a breakdown. Maybe I did, but I know what I saw on that ladder. I know it was me looking down, and I know what that means. It means I didn't leave the tower. Not really. Part of me is still up there, climbing the ladder, knocking on the windows, rattling the door, and the part that came down, the part that's living in my sister's guest room again, looking for jobs again, pretending to be normal again. I'm not sure it's me. Because sometimes I'll be in the middle of a conversation and I'll lose track of what I'm saying. Like I'm reading lines from a script I don't remember memorizing. Sometimes I'll catch myself standing at my bedroom window at 2:47 a.m., looking out at nothing, just standing there for hours. And sometimes, late at night, I hear footsteps on my sister's roof. Slow, deliberate. The same rhythm I heard at the tower. She doesn't hear them, no one does, except me. And one day, someone else will take that job. They'll hike up to the tower. They'll see the note in the lockbox, and if they're smart, they'll turn around and go home. But if they're like me, if they're desperate enough, they'll climb up anyway. And I'll be waiting. Because I think I understand now. The tower doesn't just have one watcher, it collects them. Every person who stays too long, who hears too much, who sees themselves on that ladder, they don't leave. Not all of them. And we're all up there now, all of us who stayed, taking turns, climbing, knocking, calling names in stolen voices, waiting for the next one to arrive. I need to start by saying I'm not the kind of person who believes in things I can't explain. I teach biology at a community college in Asheville. I understand how the world works. Cells divide. Evolution happens, cause and effect. That's how I've always operated. But what happened to me last November has made me question whether understanding something and accepting something are the same thing. My brother-in-law, Terry, owns a salvage and recycling business. He'd gotten a contract to clear out an old camping supply store that had closed down somewhere outside of Cherokee. The place had been abandoned for almost 10 years, and the owner had finally decided to sell the property, but the building had to be emptied first. Terry asked if I wanted to help. He was offering cash under the table, and I had a long weekend coming up. I said, sure, I needed the money more than I wanted to admit. The college had cut my hours that semester, something about enrollment being down. My ex-girlfriend had taken most of the furniture when she moved out 3 months earlier, and I was sleeping on an air mattress in my living room. Pride kept me from asking my sister for help, but cash work with Terry seemed like a reasonable compromise. We drove out on a Friday morning, took Route 19, until we hit a turnoff that didn't have a sign anymore, just a faded wooden post. The road got narrower the deeper we went, branches scraping against the sides of Terry's truck. I asked him how he'd found this place. Owner called me directly. he said. Saw my ad in the paper. Said he wanted someone discreet. Didn't want a big operation making noise about it. Why? Terry shrugged. Some people are weird about their businesses failing, don't want the whole town knowing. The store was another 2 miles down a gravel path that wound through thick forest. When we got there, I understood why the place had failed. It was in the middle of nowhere. No foot traffic, no visibility. You'd have to know it was here to find it. The building was a long, low structure with a sagging roof and windows so covered in grime you couldn't see through them. The sign above the door read, Piney Ridge Outfitters, in letters that had once been red but had faded to rust. Terry unlocked the front door with a key the owner had given him. The hinges screamed. Inside, the air was stale and cold, like a tomb that had been sealed for years. The store had been cleared of most inventory, but there were still shelves lining the walls and a counter in the back. Dust coated everything. Our footsteps left prints on the floor. Jesus, Terry said. This is going to take all weekend. I looked around. There was something depressing about abandoned commercial spaces. All that hope and effort reduced to dust and empty shelves. I noticed the walls were covered with faded posters advertising hiking trails and camping equipment. One poster showed a smiling family roasting marshmallows. The father's face had been bleached almost white by sun exposure, making him look ghostly. Behind the counter, I found an old receipt book. The last entry was dated June 15, 2014. A purchase of hiking boots and a water filter. Total, $127.43. I wondered who that person was, if they were still hiking these mountains, if they'd ever come back to the store and found it closed. We started with the shelves, pulling them down, loading them onto Terry's truck. It was mindless work, which I appreciated. I'd been dealing with some personal stuff, a relationship that had ended badly, some professional setbacks, and I didn't want to think. I just wanted to work. Around noon, we broke for lunch, sat in the truck, ate sandwiches, listened to the radio. Terry told me about his kids, about how his oldest was struggling in school, about how expensive everything was getting. I nodded along, not really listening. My mind was somewhere else. In the afternoon, we moved to the back of the store. There was a storage room behind the counter with a heavy door that stuck when we tried to open it. Terry put his shoulder into it and it finally gave way. The room was small, maybe 10 by 10, and it was full of boxes. Old camping gear, apparently. Tents, sleeping bags, backpacks. All of it dusty and probably unusable. We'll just haul it all to the dump, Terry said. Not worth sorting. We started carrying boxes out. Most of them were light, but one near the back was heavier. I picked it up, and the bottom gave out. Contents spilled across the floor. I knelt down to pick everything up. That's when I saw the notebooks. There were dozens of them. Small, spiral-bound, the kind you can buy at any drugstore. Each one had a date written on the front cover in marker. I picked one up. October 2003. Another, March 2005. Another, July 2007. They went back years. Terry came in. What's that? Notebooks. Look at the dates. He glanced at them. Someone's old journals probably, tossed them. But I was curious. I opened one at random. May 2009. The handwriting was small and neat. The first entry was dated May 3rd. Name, Aaron Kessler. Age, 34. Last seen, Raven Fork Trail, 2.3 miles from parking area. Time, approximately 4:15 p.m. Weather, clear, 68 degrees. Equipment, day pack, water bottle, no overnight gear. Notes, was hiking alone. Never made it back to his car. Search lasted 4 days. No trace found. I flipped to the next page. Another entry, different name, different date, same format. Name, age, location, time, weather, equipment, notes. Every single one ended the same way. No trace found. "Terry, this is weird. Look at this." I handed him the notebook. He scanned a few pages, his expression darkening. "Missing persons reports?" he said. "Yeah, but why would someone keep them here, in a camping store?" "Maybe the owner was involved in search and rescue." I opened another notebook. Same thing. Page after page of missing people. Dates going back to 2001. All of them from the same general area. The mountains around Cherokee, the Smokies, the Nantahala. All of them hikers. All of them never found. But there was something else. Between some of the entries there were Polaroid photographs. I pulled one out. It showed a section of forest, dense trees, nothing remarkable. But in the margin of the photo someone had written, AK, Day 6, still hearing his voice. Another photo showed a hiking trail. In the background, barely visible through the trees, there was a figure. Blurry. Could have been a person. Could have been a shadow. The caption read, RT, Week 2, saw her again. Same spot. "This isn't just weird," I said. "This is hundreds of people. Maybe thousands." I started going through more notebooks. The entries were meticulous. Whoever had written them had documented everything. Trail conditions, witness statements, search efforts. It read like official reports, but there was something wrong about them. Something too detailed, too personal. Like whoever wrote this had been there, had seen things the official reports never mentioned. And then I found entries where the handwriting changed, different pens, different styles, like multiple people had been adding to these notebooks over the years. Some entries were typed and taped in, others were written on scraps of paper and glued to the pages. "Terry, look at this. There are multiple people writing in these." "So what? Maybe it was a group project, some amateur detective thing." But that didn't feel right. The entries were too obsessive, too focused. This wasn't a hobby. This was something else. In one of the later notebooks, dated 2014, I found something that made my blood run cold. An entry for a woman named Patricia Holden, age 42, last seen on the Appalachian Trail near Hot Springs. The entry described her last known location, her gear, the weather. And then, at the bottom, in different handwriting, smaller, almost like a footnote. Found her pack at mile marker 347, empty, no signs of struggle, but I heard her calling from the woods 3 nights later. She knew my name. I showed Terry. His face went pale. "We should call someone," he said. "Call who? The police? And tell them what? We found some old notebooks. This isn't right. Someone was keeping track of these people. Someone who knew things they shouldn't know." I kept reading. The entries got stranger the more recent they became. Less clinical. More personal. I found one from 2015. A teenage boy named Connor Mills disappeared on a family camping trip near Fontana Dam. The official entry was standard, but underneath, in cramped handwriting, his parents found him 2 days later. Walking on the trail like nothing happened. He said he'd gotten lost, followed a stream, found his way back. But his mother said he wasn't the same. Said he forgot her name. Called her mother instead of mom, like he always had. Said he held his fork wrong at dinner. Small things. But she noticed. She kept calling the sheriff. They thought she was being hysterical. Couldn't accept her son had been traumatized. But I believe her. I saw Connor at the gas station last week. He moved wrong, like he was puppeted. In 2016, there was an entry about a man named Derek Pullman, age 29. disappeared on the Benton McKay Trail. The entry described everything normally, but at the bottom, in the same cramped handwriting I'd seen before, saw him yesterday, 6 months after he disappeared. He was standing on the trail, just standing there, not moving. When I got closer, he turned and walked into the trees. I followed him for a quarter mile. Then he just stopped, turned around, looked right at me, said my name. How did he know my name? I've never seen him before in my life. His eyes were wrong. The pupils didn't dilate in the shadows, just stayed the same size. When he spoke, his mouth moved, but the words seemed to come from somewhere else. I ran. I'm not ashamed to admit it. I ran. There were more. So many more. People who'd disappeared and were found days, weeks, months later. All of them changed somehow. All of them wrong in ways that were hard to define. Family members who insisted something was different. Friends who stopped returning calls. Co-workers who noticed subtle shifts in behavior. And the person writing these notes, whoever they were, they'd noticed too. They'd been tracking these people, watching them, documenting the changes. I found an entry from 2017 that particularly disturbed me. A woman named Clara Vance, age 56. She disappeared while hiking alone near Joyce Kilmer Forest. Found 3 weeks later by hunters, dehydrated but alive. The official report said she'd gotten disoriented and survived on stream water and berries. But the note underneath told a different story. Spoke with her daughter. Clara doesn't remember her grandchildren's names. Gets confused about basic things. Her daughter said it's like talking to an AI that was trained on her mother's speech patterns but doesn't understand context. She'll laugh at jokes that aren't funny. She'll go silent in the middle of conversations like she's buffering. And she sleeps wrong. Her daughter went to check on her one night and found her just standing in the bedroom, facing the wall, not moving. When asked what she was doing, Clara said resting, but she was standing up, eyes open, for hours. Terry grabbed the notebook from my hands. We're leaving, now. Wait, there's more. I don't care. This is wrong. This is seriously wrong. But I couldn't stop. I grabbed another notebook. This one was newer, the pages less yellowed. 2018. I flipped through it. More missing people. More strange notes at the bottom. And then I found an entry that stopped me cold. Name, Michael Thorne. Age, 32. Last seen, Firewatch Tower, George Washington National Forest. Time unknown. Equipment, full ranger kit. Notes, completed his full 6-week stint, came down. But something came down with him. I've been watching him, he doesn't know. He goes to work, he talks to people, he smiles, but it's not him. I can tell. I've seen enough of them to know. Whatever was up in that tower, it's wearing him now. Michael Thorne. I knew that name. I'd read about him. There was an incident a few years back. Some ranger who'd had a breakdown at a firewatch tower. Made the local news. They said he'd suffered from isolation-induced psychosis. But this entry suggested something else entirely. I kept flipping. Every few pages there were entries like this. People who'd been reported missing, then found, but something was wrong with them. People who'd been seen in places they shouldn't be. People who spoke in voices that weren't quite right. And then I found the last entry. It was dated 3 weeks ago, November 2nd. They're not taking them anymore. They're replacing them. I've counted 17 in the last year alone. They look right. They sound right. They know things only the real person would know. But they're not real. I can tell by the way they move, the way they pause before speaking, like they're remembering lines, the way their eyes don't track movement quite right. They're getting better at it, though. Soon, I won't be able to tell the difference at all. Below that, in the same handwriting, I don't think I'm the only one keeping track. I found evidence of others, people like me, watching, recording, trying to understand, but I haven't seen any of them in months. I think they got to them too. I think I'm next. And then, at the very bottom of the page, in shaky handwriting, if you're reading this, be careful who you tell. They might already be among the people you trust. Terry was pulling at my arm. We need to go. Now. I looked up at him. His face was white. His hands were shaking. Did you read all of this? I asked. Enough. Come on. We loaded the notebooks into my car. All of them. Terry didn't argue. We left the rest of the boxes, left the shelves, just got in our vehicles and drove away. I followed Terry back to the main road, then split off toward my apartment in Asheville. I spent the next 3 days reading through every single notebook. There were 47 of them in total, covering nearly 2 decades, thousands of entries. The earlier ones were straightforward: names, dates, locations, missing persons reports, but the later ones got increasingly paranoid, increasingly detailed about the people who came back wrong. I started cross-referencing the names with news reports, missing persons databases, anything I could find online. Most of the disappearances were real, documented, official, but the parts about people coming back, about them being replaced, there was no official record of any of that. Except I started noticing things. Little details in the news stories. Family reports person seems different after traumatic experience. Friends say missing hiker not the same after rescue. Survivor struggles to reintegrate, exhibits personality changes. Everyone attributed it to trauma, PTSD, the brain's way of coping with extreme stress. But what if it wasn't? I made a spreadsheet, organized everything by date, location, and outcome. Found patterns I didn't want to see. Most disappearances happened during specific times of year, late summer through early fall, the same months when hiking traffic was highest, the same months when people felt safest on the trails. And there were geographic clusters. Certain trails had higher concentrations of disappearances. Certain areas where multiple people had been reported missing over the years. I mapped them out, drew circles on a topographic map I'd printed out. The circles overlapped in 3 areas. One near the fire watchtower where Michael Thorne had been stationed. One near the old phone clearing that I'd read about in one of the entries. And one near Piney Ridge Outfitters, the very building where I'd found the notebooks. I sat back and stared at the map. These weren't random. These were deliberate, planned. Something was using these locations, these convergence points. I tried calling Terry a week later. His wife answered, said he hadn't been feeling well, wouldn't come to the phone. She sounded nervous. I asked if I could stop by. She said no, said Terry needed rest, said he'd call me when he was feeling better. He never called. I tried again 2 days later. No answer. Left 3 voicemails. Nothing. I drove by his house 2 weeks later. His truck was in the driveway. Lights were on inside. But when his wife answered the door, she looked at me like she didn't know who I was. "Can I help you?" she said. "It's me, Tom, Terry's brother-in-law. We just did that job together a few weeks ago." She stared at me, blank expression. Her eyes were glassy, unfocused. "I don't know anyone named Tom. Is Terry here? Can I talk to him?" "Terry's resting. He doesn't want visitors." She started to close the door. I put my foot in the way. "Wait, what's going on? Why are you acting like you don't know me?" She looked down at my foot, then back at my face. Her expression didn't change. "Please remove your foot from the door." Her voice was flat, emotionless, like she was reading from a script. I did. She closed it. I heard the lock click. I stood there for a full minute trying to make sense of what just happened. Then I noticed something. Through the window beside the door, I could see into the living room. Terry was sitting on the couch, just sitting there, not watching TV, not reading, just sitting, staring straight ahead. As I watched, he stood up, walked to the kitchen, stood in front of the refrigerator, opened it, stared inside for what must have been 2 full minutes, then closed it without taking anything, walked back to the couch, sat down in the exact same position. His movements were mechanical, precise, like someone following instructions. I got back in my car and drove home. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about those notebooks, about the entries, about Michael Thorne and the 17 people who'd been replaced in the last year, about Terry's wife looking at me like I was a stranger, about Terry sitting on that couch, moving like a machine following a program. Around 3 a.m., I heard something outside my apartment. Footsteps in the hallway. They stopped outside my door. I waited. No knock, no sound. Just someone standing there. I looked through the peephole. The hallway was empty. But when I opened the door, there was something on the floor. A small spiral notebook. New. The cover was blank except for a date written in marker. December 2024. I picked it up, opened it. The first page had one entry, written in handwriting I'd come to recognize from the other notebooks. Name, Tom Bridger. Age, 39. Last seen, Piney Ridge Outfitters salvage work. Time, November 15th, approximately 3:47 p.m. Notes, found the collection, took it with him. They know. They always know when someone finds the collection. Estimated time until contact, 14 to 21 days. Today's date was December 3rd, 18 days since I'd found the notebooks. Below the entry, in different handwriting, was a single line. We've been watching you too. I dropped the notebook, slammed the door, locked it, pushed my couch against it. But then I realized something. If they'd left this notebook for me, they'd already been inside my apartment. They had a key, or they didn't need one. I grabbed my laptop and started documenting everything, writing down every detail I could remember, every name from the notebooks, every pattern I'd noticed. I uploaded it to 3 different cloud storage accounts. Sent encrypted emails to myself, made sure there was a record somewhere. Because if they were coming for me, if I was going to be the next one replaced, I needed someone to know, someone to keep watching. I'm writing this now because I need someone to know. I need someone to have a record. The notebooks are in a storage unit downtown. Unit 247. The key is taped under my car's rear bumper. If something happens to me, if I disappear or if I come back, but I'm not really me anymore, someone needs to know about this. Someone needs to keep watching. Because I think whoever was writing in these notebooks was right. I think people are being taken from these mountains. And I think something is sending them back. Something that's learning to be human, something that's getting better at it. And I think it's almost my turn. Last night, I looked in the mirror and didn't recognize myself for just a split second. Just a fraction of a moment where my face looked wrong, like someone wearing a mask of my face. Then it was normal again. But I keep thinking about that moment, that split second of wrongness. Today at work, one of my students asked me a question about cellular mitosis and I couldn't remember the answer. It was basic, freshman-level biology. I've taught this material for 8 years, but for a moment, my mind went completely blank. And when I finally answered, the words felt wrong in my mouth, like I was reading them phonetically without understanding what they meant. My colleague asked if I was feeling okay. I said yes. But I saw the way she looked at me, the same way Terry's wife had looked at me. Like something was off, but she couldn't quite identify what. I keep wondering if it was me looking out from behind my own eyes, or if it was something else looking back at me, learning how to be me. I don't know anymore. I've started noticing other things too. Yesterday, I made coffee the wrong way. Not just differently, wrong. I put the grounds in without a filter, tried to drink it black even though I've always used cream. It was only when I took the first bitter sip that I remembered my actual preferences. This morning, I couldn't remember my sister's name for almost 30 seconds. My own sister. I stood there with my phone in my hand, staring at her contact info, and the name Rachel looked foreign, like a word in another language. I'm forgetting how to be myself, or maybe I'm not forgetting. Maybe I'm being overwritten. Replaced line by line, memory by memory, habit by habit. But I think soon it won't matter. Because whatever's watching me from the mountains, whatever's been taking people and sending back replacements, I think it's decided I know too much. I think I'm next on the collection list. And the worst part is, I don't think I'll know when it happens. I'll just wake up one morning and I'll be different. And I'll go about my life, teaching my classes, talking to my colleagues, going through all the motions. And no one will know. No one will be able to tell. Except maybe someone like the person who wrote these notebooks. Someone who's watching. Someone who can see the little differences. The pauses. The wrong movements. The eyes that don't track quite right. Someone who's keeping a collection of their own, and maybe, somewhere, they'll write an entry about me. About how I disappeared for a few days after finding the notebooks. About how I came back. About how I seemed fine at first. But about how something was different. Something small. Something wrong. And they'll add my name to the list of people who were replaced. Because I think that's what happens. I think when you find out about them, when you learn what they're doing, you become part of it. You become one of them, not by choice, but because they can't let you go back knowing what you know. So, they take you. And they study you. And they learn you. Every gesture, every phrase, every habit, and then they send something back that looks like you, sounds like you, knows everything you knew. But it's not you. It's never you. It's just something wearing your shape, walking through your life, waiting for the next person to notice, waiting for the next person to start keeping track. And then it starts all over again. Last night, I had a dream. Or maybe it wasn't a dream. I was standing in a forest I didn't recognize. There were others there, dozens of them, maybe hundreds, all standing in a perfect circle around a clearing. They all looked human, normal, but when I looked closer, I could see the small wrongnesses, the pupils that didn't dilate, the breathing that was slightly out of sync, the way they stood without shifting weight. And in the center of the clearing was a pile of notebooks, thousands of them, a mountain of documentation, years and years of observations, names and dates and locations. One of the figures turned to me, smiled, said my name, in my voice. When I woke up, I was standing in my kitchen. It was 3:47 a.m. I had a pen in my hand and a notebook open on the counter. I'd been writing, but I don't remember what I wrote, and I'm afraid to look, because I think I already know what it says. I think it's the start of a new collection, with my name at the top. I've walked the same trail 47 times now, not by choice, not because I want to, but because I can't find my way off it. My name is Sarah Lennox, and I'm a wildlife photographer. Was a wildlife photographer. I don't know what I am anymore. I came to the Blue Ridge Mountains in October to shoot fall colors and maybe catch some migrating birds. It was supposed to be a 3-day trip. That was 6 weeks ago. At least I think it's been 6 weeks. Time moves differently here. I started at the Graveyard Fields trailhead. Popular spot, lots of traffic, well marked. I've hiked this area before. 5 years ago, maybe 6. I knew the route. Out and back, about 4 miles total. Easy. I brought my camera, my good lenses, extra batteries. Left my car in the parking lot around 7 in the morning. Told the ranger at the station I'd be back by noon. The morning was perfect. Clear sky, temperature in the low 50s, light filtering through the trees in that golden way that makes everything look like a painting. I shot probably 200 photos in the first hour. Couldn't help myself. Every angle was perfect. Around mile 2, I left the main trail. Not far, maybe 30 yards, just to get a better shot of a stream cutting through some rocks. I kept the trail in sight. I'm not stupid. I've been hiking for 20 years. You don't lose sight of the trail. But when I turned around, the trail was gone. Not covered, not hidden. Gone. Like it had never been there. I stood there with my camera in my hands, staring at dense forest where a clear path had been 30 seconds earlier. I walked back the way I'd come. Found the stream. Found the rocks. But the trail wasn't there. I tried not to panic. Retraced my steps. Checked my compass. Checked my GPS. The GPS said I was on the trail. Right on it. But I was standing in the middle of the forest with no path in sight. I walked in the direction the GPS indicated for about 10 minutes. That's when I found it. The trail, same trail. I recognized the markers, the wooden signs, even the same boot print in the mud that I'd stepped over earlier. I laughed. Relief flooded through me. I'd gotten disoriented, that's all. Happened to everyone. I checked my watch. 9:45, plenty of time to finish the hike and get back. I kept walking, took more photos. The light was still perfect, better than perfect. At mile 3, I saw something that made me stop. A backpack, sitting on a rock beside the trail. It was weathered, faded, but the brand was visible. North Face, same brand I was wearing. I walked up to it, called out. "Hello? Anyone here?" No answer, just wind through the trees. I shouldn't have touched it, I know that now, but I did. Opened it. Inside was a water bottle, some granola bars, and a camera. A Nikon D850, same model I was carrying. My hands started shaking. I pulled out the camera, turned it on. The battery was dead, but when I swapped in one of my batteries, it powered up. I scrolled through the photos. They were my photos. Same angles, same subjects, same timestamps. Photos I'd taken that morning. Photos that were on my camera at that exact moment. But this wasn't my camera. I checked. Mine was still around my neck. I dropped the camera back in the pack and ran. Didn't look back. Just ran down the trail toward the parking lot. I ran for what felt like an hour. My lungs burned. My legs cramped. But I kept going. Finally, I saw it. The trailhead. The parking lot. My car was there. Same spot where I'd left it. I fumbled for my keys, got in, locked the doors. Sat there, breathing hard, trying to calm down. That's when I looked at the trail map on the dashboard, the one I'd marked with my route. Someone had drawn on it. A red line circling the trail I'd just hiked, and written beside it, in handwriting that looked like mine but wasn't quite right. Again. I started the car, put it in reverse, backed out of the space. That's when I saw the ranger station. The same ranger was there. Same uniform, same face. He waved at me. I waved back. Drove toward the exit. The road curved through the trees, same way I'd driven in that morning. But the curve kept going and going. The trees started looking familiar. Same patterns, same breaks in the canopy. I came around a final bend and saw the parking lot. My car was there, same spot. I was sitting in my car, looking at my car. I slammed on the brakes, got out, walked over to the other car. It was locked. I looked through the window. Empty. I checked the license plate, same as mine. I got back in my car and drove again. This time I counted the curves, memorized the trees, watched for any difference. 23 curves, then the parking lot. My car was there. I tried again. Same result. Again, same result. I lost count after the 15th time. Eventually, I gave up. Parked the car, got out, walked back to the trailhead. The ranger was still there. I approached him. "Excuse me, I need help. Something's wrong with the road. It keeps looping back." He smiled. "Trail map?" "No, the road, the exit road. It's not working right." "Have a great hike," he said. Same inflection, same tone, like he was reading a script. I grabbed his shoulder. "Listen to me, something is wrong." He smiled. "Trail map? Stop saying that. Have a great hike." I backed away. He didn't move, just stood there, smiling, waiting for the next hiker who would never come. I walked back to the trail, started hiking. Maybe if I walked far enough, I'd find a different way out. A service road, another trail, something. At mile 2, I left the main trail to photograph the stream. Same stream, same rocks. When I turned around, the trail was gone. I found it again after 10 minutes. Kept walking. At mile 3, I found the backpack. Still there. Still on the same rock. I opened it, same contents. The camera had a full battery now. I checked the photos. All my photos were there, including photos I hadn't taken yet. Photos from later in the day. Photos of me, taken from behind, walking the trail. I turned around, no one there. I kept walking. Faster this time. Reached the parking lot, my car was there. I got in, drove the loop. 23 curves, parking lot. My car was there. I tried the trail again. Same events, same backpack, same photos. This was the first day, at least, I think it was the first day. After a while, they started blurring together. I've tried everything. I've tried walking off trail, bushwhacking through the forest. Always end up back at the stream. Always end up back at the backpack. I've tried following the stream. It leads to the parking lot. I've tried destroying the trail markers. They're back the next time I walk through. Fresh. Undamaged. I've tried staying in my car, sleeping there, waiting. But eventually, I have to get out. Have to walk the trail. Something compels me. A pull I can't resist. On what I think was day 3, I tried driving the wrong way on the exit road. Just put the car in reverse and backed up for as long as I could. The road straightened out behind me. No curves, just straight road stretching back. I backed up for what must have been an hour. The gas gauge didn't move. The odometer didn't change. When I finally stopped and put the car in drive, I was at the parking lot, facing forward, like I'd just arrived. I tried breaking the windows of the ranger station. The glass won't break. I hit it with a rock. The rock shattered. The glass didn't even scratch. I tried the door, locked, always locked. But through the window I can see the ranger sitting at his desk. Not moving, just sitting there, waiting. I've tried screaming, tried calling for help. My voice echoes back at me, but it sounds wrong. Like it's coming from somewhere deep in the forest, from somewhere that shouldn't have an echo. I've tried leaving messages. I carved help into a tree at the trailhead. Next loop, the tree was unmarked. I left my jacket at mile 2 as a marker. Next loop, it was gone. But when I got to the parking lot, it was in my car, folded neatly in the passenger seat. On day 5, maybe day 6, I tried staying at the stream. Just sat there. Refused to move. watched the sun arc across the sky. It moved wrong. Too fast, then too slow, then too fast again. When it finally set, darkness came all at once, like someone flipping a switch. I sat there in the dark, couldn't see my hand in front of my face. That's when I heard them. Footsteps, dozens of them, all around me, walking, never stopping, just walking in circles through the darkness. I tried to stay still, tried to be quiet, but the pull got stronger. An ache in my chest, a need to move, to walk, to complete the pattern. I stood up, started walking. Couldn't see anything, but my feet knew where to go. Found the trail in the dark, followed it to the parking lot, got in my car, waited for dawn. When the sun came up, I was starting the trail again. I've tried not sleeping, tried to stay awake through multiple loops, see if anything changes. But exhaustion doesn't work the same way here. I get tired, but I don't collapse. Don't pass out, just keep walking. Keep driving. Keep repeating. On day 9, I started keeping a journal. Wrote down every detail, every loop, numbered them. Tried to find patterns within the pattern. Loop 23, backpack was 2 feet closer to the trail. Loop 24, Ranger's smile was wider. Counted his teeth. Too many. Loop 25, found a hair on the car seat, blonde. My hair is brown. Loop 26, my watch stopped at 3:47 p.m. Won't reset. Loop 27, saw someone else on the trail. Man, maybe 60. Didn't respond when I called out. Walked past me like I wasn't there. The journal helped at first, gave me something to focus on. But then I noticed the entries were changing. Words I didn't write appearing. Details I didn't remember observing. Loop 34. She's starting to understand. Loop 35. The recording is 47% complete. Loop 41. Resistance is decreasing. Integration accelerating. I stopped writing in the journal, but the entries kept appearing. Different handwriting each time. Sometimes mine, sometimes not. I've stopped counting the loops. Stopped trying to keep track. But I've noticed things. The ranger's smile gets a little wider each time. The backpack gets a little closer to the trail each time I pass it. The photos on the camera show me from closer angles each time. And the last photo, the one that wasn't there before, shows me standing at mile 3, looking at the camera. My face is blank, my eyes are empty. And written across the bottom of the image in red, she's learning. I don't know what that means. Learning what? But I think I'm starting to understand. Every time I walk the trail, I feel a little less like myself. A little more like I'm going through motions I don't control. My footsteps fall in the exact same places. My breathing sinks to a rhythm I don't set. My thoughts start looping the same way the trail loops. I tried to resist it, tried to walk differently, take different photos, say different things to the ranger, but it's getting harder. The pull is getting stronger. Yesterday, or what I think was yesterday, I caught myself smiling the same smile the ranger smiles. Wide, fixed, empty. I've started seeing other people on the trail sometimes. Not every loop, just sometimes. They walk past me. Don't make eye contact. Don't respond when I call out. They're all carrying cameras. All wearing hiking gear. All moving in that same fixed rhythm. I think they're like me. Stuck. Repeating. I tried following one of them once. A woman, maybe 30, with a red jacket and hiking poles. She walked at exactly the same pace every step. Never varied. Never stumbled. I called out to her. She didn't react. I caught up to her at mile 2. Stood right in front of her. She walked around me. Not aggressively, just smoothly adjusted her path like I was a tree or a rock. Something inanimate to navigate around. I grabbed her arm. It felt real, warm, human. But she didn't stop. Just kept walking, pulling me along with her. Her face was blank, eyes open, but seeing nothing. Or seeing something I couldn't see. I let go, watched her walk to the stream, watch her leave the trail. When she turned around and the trail was gone, she searched, found it, kept walking. Exactly like I had, exactly like I do. I wonder how many loops she's done. How much of her is left. Last night, I didn't sleep. I sat in my car and watched the trailhead. Around midnight, I saw them. A line of people. Maybe 20, maybe more. All walking the same trail, in the dark, without flashlights, moving in perfect synchronization. Their feet hit the ground at exactly the same moment, 20 sets of footsteps sounding like one. Their arms swung in unison, their heads turned at the same angle when they passed the ranger station. I got out of the car, followed them. They walked to mile 2, left the trail, found the stream. When they turned around, the trail was gone. They searched, found it, kept walking. At mile 3, each one stopped at the backpack, opened it, looked at the camera, closed it, kept walking. The movements were identical, synchronized to the second. When they reached the parking lot, they got into cars. Cars that looked like theirs, started the engines at the same moment, drove the loop, 23 curves, parked, got out, started walking again. I watched for what must have been hours, the same procession, over and over. They never stopped, never rested, just walked and drove and walked and drove. And I realized something that made my stomach drop. One of them looked like me. Same height, same build, same jacket, walking the same way I walk, carrying the same camera. I think I saw myself, or what I'm becoming. The final recording, the completed pattern. It, whatever it was, it didn't see me. Just walked past. But I could see its face, my face, empty, smooth, like a mask that had been worn so long it had fused with the skin beneath. I don't know how many loops they've done, but I could see it in their faces. They weren't people anymore. Not really. They were patterns, routines, ghosts of what they'd been, walking the same path over and over until there was nothing left of who they used to be. I think that's what's happening to me. This morning, I didn't recognize my own voice when I spoke. It sounded like me, but flatter. Like a recording that had been compressed too many times. Like an echo of an echo. I tried to say something I'd never said before, tried to break the pattern, but the words came out wrong. Jumbled. And then my mouth moved on its own, saying the same things I always say at that point in the loop. Just a little farther, just to the stream. I've said those words 1,000 times now. They don't mean anything anymore. Just sounds. Just part of the pattern. I can feel it, the edges of my personality smoothing out. The rough parts, the parts that make me me, wearing away with each repetition. Soon, I'll be just like them. Just another pattern on a repeating trail. I'm writing this in the margins of my trail map. I don't know if anyone will find it. I don't know if it matters. But I need to leave some record, some proof that I was here, that I was real. If you're reading this, if you found this map, don't try to find me. Don't come to Graveyard Fields. Don't walk the trail, because I think I understand now what's happening here. I think the mountains are recording us. Every person who walks these trails leaves an impression, a pattern. Most people walk through once and leave. Their impression fades. But some of us, we get stuck. Our patterns repeat. And with each repetition, we become less human and more recording. less person and more echo. The backpack, the camera, the photos that show things before they happen. I think they're part of the process. The mountains are learning us, studying us, recording every detail, and once the recording is complete, once they've captured everything that makes us who we become part of the loop, permanent, eternal, walking the same trail forever. I can feel it completing. The recording. Each time I walk the trail, I notice more things that are wrong, more things that are copies rather than originals. This morning, I looked at my hands and didn't recognize them. The lines were wrong. The freckles were in different places. But they moved when I wanted them to move. They felt like my hands. But they weren't. I think I'm becoming a copy of myself, a recording playing on repeat. And the worst part is I can feel myself accepting it. The panic is fading, the fear is smoothing away. Each loop makes it easier, makes it feel more natural, like this is how it's supposed to be. Yesterday, I walked past the backpack without checking it. Just walked by. Didn't even look. That's when I knew. I'm almost done resisting, almost ready to join the others. There was a moment, maybe 3 loops ago, where I remembered my apartment. My life before this. I tried to picture my living room. Couldn't remember what color the walls were. Tried to remember my best friend's name. Came up blank. I sat down on the trail and cried, or tried to cry. But the tears wouldn't come, and after a moment, I stood up and kept walking. Because that's what the pattern requires. I tried to remember my mother's face. Couldn't. Tried to remember what I did for work. Photographer, yes, but what kind? Wildlife. But I couldn't remember any specific shoots, any specific animals, just the general idea of being a photographer. I'm being erased. Not all at once, but piece by piece, memory by memory. Every loop takes a little more, smooths away another edge, another detail that made me unique. Soon there won't be anything left but the pattern, the walking, the driving, the endless repetition. And maybe that's better. Maybe resistance is what hurts. Maybe if I just let go, stop fighting, it won't feel like loss anymore. It'll just feel like completion. Tonight, when the line of people walks past at midnight, I think I'll join them. I think I'm supposed to. I think that's always been where this was leading. I can feel the pull getting stronger. It's not just at night anymore, it's constant. A thread tugging at my center, guiding me through the motions. Sometimes I can resist it for a few seconds, but it always wins. This afternoon I found myself standing at mile 3 without remembering how I got there. Just suddenly there, hand reaching for the backpack, movements I don't control. The camera was different this time, newer, cleaner. When I turned it on, there was only one photo. Me, standing in the parking lot, getting into my car. But the timestamp said it was taken tomorrow, or what would be tomorrow if time worked here. And I was smiling. That same empty smile the ranger has. Wide, fixed, content. I think that's the final stage. When you start smiling. When you stop seeing it as a trap and start seeing it as home. And then tomorrow, or the next day, or in 1,000 loops from now, someone else will arrive. Someone new. They'll park their car in the same spot. They'll talk to the smiling ranger. They'll walk the trail. And at mile 3 they'll find a backpack. Inside will be a camera, and when they turn it on, they'll see photos. Their photos. Photos they haven't taken yet, and they'll run, just like I did. They'll try to escape, just like I did. But they won't, just like I didn't. I wonder if they'll try to warn the next person. Leave messages, write in the margins of maps. I did that at first, but I've noticed the messages don't stay. Or maybe they do, and no one can see them. Maybe you can only see the warnings after it's too late to use them. Because some trails don't have exits. Some paths just loop back on themselves forever. And once you're on them, once you've walked them enough times, you become part of them. You become the trail. I'm walking it again now, for the 48th time, or the 100th, or the 1000th. I've stopped counting. Numbers don't matter here. At mile 2, I'll leave the trail to photograph the stream. When I turn around, the trail will be gone. I'll find it again after 10 minutes. At mile 3, I'll walk past the backpack without looking. I won't need to look anymore. I know what's inside. I've always known. And when I reach the parking lot, I'll get in my car. I'll drive the loop, 23 curves. And when I come back to the parking lot, my car will be there. And I'll start walking again. Because that's what I do now. That's all I do. That's all I am. A pattern on a repeating trail. A recording playing over and over. An echo of someone who used to be named Sarah Lennox. Someone who used to be a photographer. Someone who used to be real. But the recording is almost complete now. Soon, there won't be any difference between the original and the copy. Soon, I won't remember that there ever was an original. And then I'll be perfect. Just another part of the mountain. Just another loop in the eternal trail. If you find this map, if you read these words, remember me. Remember that I was here. Remember that I was real. And whatever you do, don't walk the trail. Because it's still hungry. Still recording. Still waiting for the next person to step onto the path and begin the process all over again. The mountains remember everything, every footstep, every breath, every person who's ever walked these trails. And once they remember you, they never let you leave. I can see the parking lot now. My car is there. I'll get in, drive the loop, 23 curves, and then I'll walk the trail again.